is comfortable and not in pain. At Mary T. Hospice, we understand that choosing the right hospice care provider can be overwhelming, but we're here to assist you. Learn more today at marytinc.com.
Would you let animals pick your insurance? Do you really need to experience mayhem to get the best rates? Or how about a celebrity quarterback or fake university saving you money? There's a lot of marketing stunts when it comes to insurance, but what you really need is someone looking out for you. Call Array Insurance, and they will work hard to find you the best insurance coverage and rates. So avoid gimmicks and call Cheryl at Array, 763-504-3067 or arrayinsurance.com. Array Insurance, working hard for you.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for cloudy skies today with a high near 41. Tonight, rain with a low around 32. And Wednesday, cloudy with a high near 38. Cafe Latte is a hot spot for American eats and house-made desserts in a cafeteria-style setup plus a pizza and wine bar. Cafe Latte believes ingredients matter, so that's why they never use artificial flavors, colors, or preservatives. Dine in at the restaurant off Victoria and Grand at St. Paul or place a takeout order at cafelatte.com.
Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. The Matt McNeil Show for your Tuesday or Wednesday. What day is it? Tuesday. It's
Friday.
I actually it's one of those, I've been running around all day today. I got tax stuff I got to get done and all blah, 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 blah. How are you today, Patrick?
Doing good. Not a lot happened since I saw you yesterday.
Something huge happened. Buxton is hitting DH.
Oh, that's right. We've also got the World Baseball Classic. I did not see the game, unfortunately, but Mexico and Japan apparently played one of the most epic games.
They did. So fun story. One of my good friends in high school back in the day was a guy named Jeff Foldenauer. And I get on on the Facebook page for my graduating class. Someone posts up there, by the way, Jeff Foldenauer, a graduate of our year, is going to be in a poker tournament televised at this link. And I became fascinated because, we've seen, there's been some of these the World Series of Poker. You get these poker tours. Sometimes if you're, it's a rainy day and you don't have anything else to do and the thing is on, you watch a little poker. I enjoy it. I don't play it that much. I'm not bad at it. It just is. I can see the fixes into a point. It's like, unless you're really, really good at it, it can kind of drain you pretty quick. So I went in and watched him, and I watched my friend during this play poker, and he did fairly well. I mean, this is like one of those tables where they basically have cameras all around the table, and they're keeping track of your chip count and stuff like that. Very impressive. I was very impressed with him. So I enjoyed watching Jeff do that, and I think he ended up making money that night, so good for him. During that game, though, they were preoccupied, and I've never seen this because it tells you what's going on. They were preoccupied with the Japan-Mexico game, so I turned it on. Holy cow, what a game. That was as good as baseball gets. And Japan ends up, coming back and winning that game. They were down 3-0, tied it up. Mexico takes the lead. They end up getting 2 runs in the 9th off a double to deep center, and that was all she wrote. It's a heck of a game. Absolutely fantastic. Buxton is, let's see here. Where is it? It's a 5:05 start time today. We got to play Tampa Bay. Still no Jorge Polanco, which I think is a key for us to win this year.
I'm starting to see that they don't think he's going to be available opening day.
Buxton is DHing, leading off tonight. Correa, Farmer, Gallo, Vasquez, Taylor, Garlic, Gordon, and Castro. That's a first, judging by the stats line here, and there are no stats. This is the first appearance of Byron Buxton, and it is a week and a half to opening day. Good luck, everybody. 952-946-6205. 952-946-6205. And by the way, USA versus Japan tonight. This is it 6:00 they got first pitch on that game?
I believe so, yes.
Again, that will be a fun game. That Japanese squad is loaded with talent, just loaded with talent. I think the United States might be in trouble here, if you want the truth. I think they might be. I can't believe, that game last night. If you're a fan at all of sports, go watch that Mexico-Japan game. That was as good as it gets. Did you see the video of the car that crashed into the Metro Transit lines?
That was absolutely terrifying.
So, in case you missed it, a Metro Transit light rail crashed into a car that was entering a downtown Minneapolis intersection with a yellow caution light still lit Monday night. The Metro Transit Police said a total of 7 people were injured in the crash, which happened at the intersection of 5th Street and Portland Avenue South around 9 p.m. 2 people inside the car were extracted, with one of them being taken to a hospital in critical condition. The other person suffered minor injuries in the crash. 5 others on the train suffered non-threatening, life-threatening injuries. The video taken by a Reddit user, and it looks like it's taken, am I crazy? It looks like it's from a dashboard video device in the car.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I wasn't sure if that was a civilian or if there just happened to be a cop behind the car when it got hit.
The fact that it was released to Reddit tells me it's probably a civilian.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I didn't look that deep into it.
That is becoming, by the way, these cameras on cars now are becoming something that's a big deal. A lot of people are getting them. There was a fantastic bit with Jon Stewart when he was still on the Daily Show, where he talked about how there's these cameras on the cars in Russia because there was such rampant crime of people trying to either rip off your car or trying to say that you had an accident and you owed them money. So they have to you have to have a camera on your car in Russia. We're now starting to see that here in this country. That looks like how that video was attained. The driver entering the intersection as the road traffic signals turns yellow. The southbound train not showing any signs of stopping. The car is struck on the passenger side, eventually getting wedged between the southbound and northbound trains. Now, that sounds horrific, and I'm not saying there wasn't some serious injuries, but what happened is the southbound train hit the car, and it pushed the car down and eventually kind of rested against the northbound train in between the 2 trains. And that was where the problem had. Blue and green lines were operating without issue on Tuesday morning. Metro Transit said the investigation will take several weeks to complete. I don't think it's going to take that long. When you have pretty cut and dry evidence, I'll get to, it's one of 2 things. It's one of 2 things. I'll get to that in a second. Light rail vehicle movements are guided by signals along the alignment. As part of the investigations, we're looking at what the rail and traffic site signals at this intersection were showing when the light rail vehicle entered the intersection. An investigation may take several weeks to complete, said spokesperson Drew Carr. Safety is our highest priority, and our operators receive extensive training both in their time of hire and throughout their career. All collisions are thoroughly investigated. Kerr said that since its operation began in 2004, there have been 416 light rail collisions with vehicles, pedestrians, or cyclists. Of those, it was determined that 9 of the incidents where train operators were at fault. Well, now, I'm not saying it was the train operator, because it could have been the train operator was looking at a signal that said go. So we have to keep that in mind. But if you look at this video, it is undeniable the car had the right of way. And it's hard to say for me, Patrick, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. It looks like the car might hit the intersection right after that light turned yellow.
Yeah, I would have to go back and watch the video again. The other thing, I don't want to do too much analysis because it almost looked like the car was speeding too, so I wasn't sure what was going on with if the car was trying to beat the train or if there was something going on with that.
But if the car had the yellow light, and it changed yellow, and from what I saw on the video, the light changes yellow right as the car gets there. Now, you might be right, that car might have been going fast, but because that light was yellow, the car traffic had the right of way still. So regardless of what that train thought, now, once again, it's one of 2 things. It's either the train conductor ignored the stop signal, which could possibly be, or it was the train conductor was following the train signals, and the train signals were wrong. It's one or the other. Needless to say, I do not think that the car that got hit saw a yellow light and then gunned it from a long distance away to try to get through that intersection.
I'm watching the video right now because it's only about a little over 10 seconds long. But yeah, you're right. I think he entered it before it turned yellow.
It's either right as it turned yellow or a second after it turned yellow. But needless to say, at that distance, there wasn't really much they could do. And I mean, they didn't break the law. Let's just put it this way. They might have been speeding, but that's not the problem here. They didn't break the law because they had the right of way on that roadway. So it's clear something with the train screwed up, whether that was operational error or that was something with the signals. But it is a pretty rough looking crash. And I'm going to presume there's going to be a full investigation into what exactly happened there. Yeah, and I'm like I said, I'm going to presume when you get an accident like that the conductor, that everyone involved, the people in the vehicle, the conductors of the trains, they'll go through, the testing to make sure that they weren't under the influence of anything, that they're going to go back. I'm going to presume with the technology we have today that you'll be able to determine what color that train light was on the southbound train, whether it said stop and wait or go, because I've seen these multiple times. You see them at a traffic light. They basically says red until the light changes, and then it gets the green for the train to go. That train wasn't even slowing down. That's the problem. That train wasn't even slowing down. It kind of rammed into the intersection. And whereas an individual might try to claim, oh, well, that guy tried to jump the line, clearly the video shows that's not the case. So all my best to the people that were individuals who were possibly injured in that. Like I said, I know it's going to be an investigation, but it seems from the video I've seen, this wasn't the driver's fault. I mean, because that's the first thing you think of. The first thing you think of is it's the driver of the vehicle. They're trying to get around train lines. As a matter of fact, there was a guy that where was that? He basically, he stalled out and he tried to go around the traffic arms of a train, not a straight car, of a train. Stalled out his vehicle there, and then, basically caused the train to derail, and they arrested him and stuff like this. That wasn't the case here. There wasn't like a, don't cross this line. The car had the right of way, at least from the light we saw. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. I'll tell you what, I've got a little story to get into. It involves our favorite absolute moron, Steve Driscowski. We're going to get to that here in a second. We'll take a break now, a little early. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. By the way, Patrick Cooligan from the Minnesota Reformer joins us in the 4 o'clock hour with Brett. It's the Matt McNeil Show right here on AM 950.
Sorry when I was said stop singing. It's my...
Hi, Matt McNeil here. On December 8th, I was driving home in my Toyota Sienna from Rudy Luther Toyota. At a traffic light, a car slammed into me. Without a doubt in my mind, if I hadn't been driving a Sienna, I wouldn't be here right now. The car is designed to take a wallop and keep the people inside safe, as it did for me. It's one thing to hear someone talk about safety standards. It's another to become an example of the safety standards. The Toyota saved my life, and I will always own one. If you want real safety, visit Rudy Luther Toyota. Rudy Luther Toyota, the corner of 394 and 169 in Golden Valley.
Are your remote workers putting your company at risk? Not sure what steps to take to secure your data? Hi, Mark Sommerfeld from Rymark. The Rymark team is guiding our clients through these difficult times. In fact, demand has been so high, we created an easy-to-follow guide with the 5 steps to securely work from home. It's yours free. Download our 5 steps to securely work from home now at rymarkit.com or call 651-328-8900 for a no-cost how-to discussion.
Hey, it's Patrick. Improve your air quality and health because Zero Res is the only choice for a true clean that lasts longer. 1 in 5 Americans suffer from poor air quality in their home and or their office. HVAC systems carry harmful particulates and promote asthma, hay fever, and allergy symptoms. A clean HVAC system promotes a healthier indoor environment, which contributes to productivity, comfort, and a sense of health and well-being. Zero Res uses the most technologically advanced duct cleaning process available. The best part? We can install an air purification and filtration system on the same day. Instead of letting these pollutants linger, get your air duct zero-resified. This month, get 3 rooms zero-resified from the Twin Cities' #1 carpet cleaner starting at just $129 and take $75 off your air duct cleaning. Call Zero Res right now, 952-ZERO-RES, or go to ZeroResMinnesota.com and ask for the AM 950 special. Zero Res.
Hey, Twin Cities, Latunji with Latunji's Palette Bakery and Cafe, located at 1400 Park Avenue South in the Elliott Park community. We invite you to discover the best peach cobbler, coffee, soups, salads, and sandwiches in the Twin Cities. And also, you can find my delectable treats at North Market Grocery Store, Annex Farmers Market, Plant-Based Pop-Up, Bobby and Steve's, Handsome Hog, and our website, latunjispalette.com. That's latunjispalette.com.
Do you really want to taste it?
AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota, the Matt McNeil Show. So, we have had a lot of fun mocking the complete and total idiot, the dummy, the stupid man that is Steve Drazkowski, who basically argued against feeding kids breakfast and lunch at school by arguing that he's never seen a hungry person, that he has never heard of anyone not having enough food. Henceforth, considering his extensive research, that can't possibly be. There's no hungry people in the area. And it's funny because almost immediately, if you were down there, his own community said, well, we've had an increased need for the food shelters here, which he completely ignored. And by the way, funny story. He says he's Catholic. He says he is. I know. Oh, gosh. I imagine maybe his Bible is just different, where it's like, Jesus was going to feed all the people the fishes and loaves. Well, but not all the people. Come on. Some of them looks like they've had a little too much to eat or anything. I'm not going to feed them. So he claims to be Catholic, but yeah, he said some of the least Christian things you possibly could, especially considering in his own Senate district, there are people who are hungry today. What a callous jackass. I mean, really, he is. Anyway, this is not his first time with this. As a matter of fact, Aaron Mayquade, this is Aaron Rupar posted, this is more on from Roops with the Scoops. Aaron Rupar on Steve Drazkowski. This is talking about nutrition for kids. And this Aaron Mayquade reposted this. It's a throwback to when Senator Drazkowski's ghoulish and frankly gross comments about children when I presented my bill to expand the healthy eating here at home program, which allows Minnesotans to use SNAP dollars at farmers market, CSAs, and direct farmer sales. Now, once again, this is a senator who represents farmers. And for goodness sakes, is there anything better for the farmer than having the local community where they need food and they've got federal dollars to spend on local food, having the local farmer benefit from the program? I know. Drazkowski's an absolute idiot. Seriously, a brick with lips. I mean, he is as dumb as, I don't know, a president who would sit and stare at the sun during a solar eclipse. I mean, stupid. Wow. Anyway, this is going to be 1 minute and 40 seconds of life. You probably will be a lot angrier by the time we get to this. Here is Steve, the in air quotes, Christian Drazkowski talking about, hunger and kids and such.
Senator Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator McQuaid. Well, sounds like we don't have it. I haven't seen the data that suggests that there's more kids going hungry today. As a matter of fact, I think there's probably less. I live in rural Minnesota, and I haven't met one yet in my district, not one. And I don't know. I know there's a big desire to have government be the center of people's universe and even feed them. Next, of course, we're going to probably want to clothe them and give them cars. Oh, we're already doing some of that. How can kids be malnourished and record obesity at the same time? I don't get it, Madam Chair. Something isn't ringing true here. And, I remember, but I do remember seeing pictures of the early 1900s or late 1880s when we had the one-room schoolhouses before any of us were here. And pictures of kids coming up to the one-room schoolhouse, and not a single kid was overweight. We don't have that anymore, members. The makeup of kids and their bodies are characterized completely different today. We've got an obesity problem, and we have proposals before us to have government feed kids more and apparently feed people more. This isn't just limited to kids. I don't think it's adults as well. But
there you go. Steve Drazkowski, you are all dumber for listening to that. I apologize. That is just, D-U-M-B with a capital duh in the front of it. Holy God. Now, two little quick side notes, if I can. First of all, was he expecting applause and encouragement when he got his zinger on in there about, we'll be giving them clothes and cars soon? I think we already are. Oh, no one else is clapping. Oh, okay. Dear Lord. Dude, did you actually put in an applause gap in your little speech because you thought that the multitudes of the masses at this Senate hearing were going to be like, yay, Steve Drazkowski, put him on your shoulders and march him out into the street? Is that what you thought was going to happen, you dim bulb? Dear Lord, are you an idiot? I mean, first of all, you don't know comedy. I would not do that. Do not put in an applause gap, because for this reason, if you're thinking it's going to be a zinger and everybody's going to be like, ha, ha, what a great joke, and it bombs like your hate-filled ignorance did, well, you just look like you suck. You kind of do. You look like you suck. Oh God, was that funny? We might have to play that again after the next break. We might have to play that one more time. Just get to him waiting for the applause round. That being said, does he think Little House on the Prairie is an actual historical document? I don't. I'm pretty sure they didn't have color cameras back then. Pa Ingalls. I don't. I'm pretty sure that wasn't the case. Okay, shall we unpack this a little bit? Shall we unpack this? Let's start with today. Now, this breaks my heart because, disclaimer, I'm Christian. You do or don't do whatever it is you do want to do or don't want to do, okay? I'm Christian because if you get down to the basics of Christianity, the reason why most conservatives, most Republicans completely and totally ignore Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John is that if you look at Jesus, he was a big old liberal. He really was. Feed the hungry, take care of the sick, welcome in strangers from strange lands. These were his live by the sword, die by the sword. I mean, he was constantly talking about caring and compassion for your fellow man. And Republicans freaking hate that. Well, I should be careful. Not all Republicans. The far right surely does. The far right can't stand that. That's why you hear Romans or Proverbs or Timothy or, Leviticus. That's why you get those stories. You don't get Psalms. You don't ever get, as Christians, you'd think they'd be quoting Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the actual story of Jesus, quite a bit. No, they can't do that because basically, to be a far-right Republican today, you got to throw out the Bible. You really do. You really do. And Steve Drazkowski is a great example of it. I mean, in Christianity, it tells you very clearly to feed the hungry. And for me, that is a key. For me, as a person, making sure people get food is such an important thing for me. My family has given to food shelves. We've done food drives. We have worked in soup kitchens. Donations have gone multiple times to people who are hungry, and I cannot espouse enough the importance of doing that, not just because of Christianity, because it's the decent human being thing to do. I am not one of these people who is like, let's figure out what the problem is. No, get them a dang sandwich. Get them some food. Then we can figure out what the problem is. The problem that a lot of Republicans have is that they have convinced themselves of this warped idealism, which is if the thought is that you could feed 100 million people who are starving, but if one person on that 100 million is cheating the system and they didn't need it, well, then they'll throw out the whole thing and say, it's better for us to have 100 million starving people than one person who's cheating the system. And I like to think that if you really are a Christian, it's the other way around. That I could have 99,900,999 people basically cheating the system. But if one person is getting fed, okay. Now, granted, the ratios don't work out like that. But still, I understand there's always going to be a level of fraud. There's always going to be a level of people who are taking advantage of a service that they may or may not need. I don't care. It's cents on the dollar. Get them some food. And if that's the way they get through the day, my gosh, bless them and move forward. Like I said, Republicans will kill any social program out of the fear that someone might abuse it, as opposed to evaluate the necessity of it. And that's the entire thing. That is Steve Drazkowski. He doesn't want to see the hungry people that exist in his community. He doesn't want to see the hunger that is working there. He says he goes to St. Peter and Paul Catholic Church in Mazeppa. Either St. Peter and Paul Church in Catholic Church in Mazeppa is a really bad church that doesn't understand feeding the hungry. But my guess is that they probably are. He either just doesn't go to that church hardly ever. He's just got it listed on his website as his church and he just never goes there. Or he basically just ignores whenever there's a call for need. Because if you actually pull up food shelves in Mazeppa, there's one in Mazeppa, there's one in Mazeppa Falls, Lake City's got one. All around his area, every town has got a food shelf. And that food is not going to waste. If anything, they need more donations. So that is Steve Drazkowski. He knows there's a need, but he intentionally sticks his head as far up his backside as he possibly can to prevent from seeing it, because for him, starving people is okay as long as he can make sure not a person who might just be somewhat starving doesn't take advantage of a program where hungry people need to be fed. Once again, he is a god-awful Christian because he can't be Christian. He can't be Christian and have this kind of mentality. Now, I've got a lot of numbers and I got a lot of stats I'm going to put out there because I want to make sure you understand how exactly stupid. For a guy to talk authoritatively about back in the 1880s and 1900, no one was obese. Have you seen President Taft? He was a large fella. They need a wider bathtub. Anyway, I don't want to get into that. But there is a very easy reason to understand that, you idiot. And you also don't understand the modern world we live in. But needless to say, you're a horrible, horrible person, Steve Drazkowski. You really are. You're a horrible, horrible human being. And I can say that as a Christian because you use your Christianity to try to make it seem like you're a decent guy. But when it comes to being the most basic level of Christian, you suck. 952-946-6205. 952-946-6205. Let's take a break. Let's fact check Steve Drazkowski when we do come back. It's the Matt McNeil Show on AM 950.
We're facing into some of the greatest challenges the world has faced in decades. How do we address this great transformation in how we deal with land, how we engage with people, how we produce enough food but produce it just and regeneratively? And how do we do that at a time of social, economic, and climatic emergency?
Attend the Regenerative Agriculture and Food Systems Summit in Chicago on March 28th and 29th. This summit brings together farmers, food and beverage brands, and stakeholders with one unified mission: to accelerate the transition to regenerative agriculture. Together, we can build a more abundant and resilient food system for generations to come. For more information, go to Regenerative Agriculture Summit USA. Enter the code FoodFreedom10 for a 10% discount. That's 10% off with Food Freedom 10. 2023 is here, and you can make it the year of the Eagle with the National Eagle Center. You and your family can enjoy exciting Eagle experiences, including field trips, private habitat tours, and exclusive behind-the-scenes tours. Meet live eagles up close, view bald eagles and golden eagles in the wild, and receive personal one-on-one education with dedicated and knowledgeable Eagle experts as you journey into the world of eagles like never before. Learn more and plan your unforgettable Eagle experience today at nationaleaglecenter.org/experiences.
Hi, I'm Rachel Shamblatt. My dad is Dr. Scott Shamblatt from Shamblatt Family Dentistry. A lot of people are afraid of the dentist, but you don't have to be. My dad makes going to the dentist comfortable and even fun. He won't be mad if you haven't seen a dentist in a long time. He just wants to take care of you and your teeth. If you don't see my dad, please see another dentist. Take care of your teeth because they're the only ones you get.
Shamblatt Family Dentistry in Hopkins and St. Paul. Find them online at shamblattfamilydentistry.com or call 1-800-FIX-MY-TEETH.
Habitation presents a radio drama. To buy or not to buy, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler to compromise and live with a sectional that doth not fit my space, or to take up arms against a sea of mediocrity, and by opposing it, to rest, to be comfortable, to enjoy the space that is my home. Hi, this is Gregory Rich, owner of Habitation Design and host of Drink in the Style. I'd like to personally invite you to our new showroom located in the District at Edina, 7777 Washington Avenue South. Habitation, put some drama into your interior design.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for cloudy skies today with a high near 41. Tonight, rain with a low around 32. And Wednesday, cloudy with a high near 38. Cafe Latte is a hot spot for American eats and house-made desserts in a cafeteria-style setup plus a pizza and wine bar. Cafe Latte believes ingredients matter, so that's why they never use artificial flavors, colors, or preservatives. Dine in at the restaurant off Victoria and Grand in St. Paul or place a takeout order at cafelatte.com.
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. It is the Matt McNeil Show. The dummy that is Steve Drazkowski, the senator, has once again another commentary from him has arisen. The first one, he said there can't be hunger in the state of Minnesota because he's never met a hungry person. He's never known a person that didn't have hunger. Yeah, idiot. Then he basically now saying, still he says again, I've never met a hungry person, but then says, you know, if there's hunger, why is there obesity? That somehow that those two things should negate each other out. I guess we're supposed to hunt people. I'm not quite sure where he's going with that. But then he also says, by the way, back in 1900, no one was overweight or anything like that. But I mean, needless to say, we want to talk about hunger, and so for the ignoramus that is Steve Drazkowski, I've decided to put some numbers and some other good things, together here, as far as how things go. Now, currently in the United States of America, I'm going to give you some incredibly harsh statistics that will scare you about food insecurity in the United States of America. Currently in the United States of America, 33.8 million people experience food insecurity every single day. That's more than 10% of the population. 33.8 million people experience food insecurity every day. 5 million of those people are children. 15.8% of children in the U.S. live in households that are food insecure, including in Steve Drazkowski's district. 1 in 6 children may not know where their next meal is coming from. 53 million people are on food programs such as SNAP, WIC, and others. 10.2% of households are food insecure in the United States. Last year, in 2020, in the United States in 2020, 13,690 people starved to death in the United States of America. 13,000 people starved, 13,690 people starved to death in the United States of America. Something that Steve Drazkowski says, that's not true. Those people didn't die. I don't know any people that died of starvation. And plus the fact that even if I did, I wouldn't help them to save themselves. But I don't know that. That's kind of where his mentality is, isn't it? I don't think he's actually said that. But, you know, I make you know, light of things. I make parodies. So, yeah. He's basically saying that, you know, he said he's never known anyone who's food insecure, who's gone hungry. So henceforth, he clearly must not know any of the 13,690 people who starved to death. So they must not exist for him in America. For every 1,000 people experiencing food insecurity, 0.37 die from starvation. In America, 37 million people experiencing food insecurity per the CDC. It's pretty stark numbers. But since he brought up 1900, I brought up the census from 1900. You can find it online. Section 12, causes of death. Dun, dun, dun. Now, first of all, can I just say this? Dude, man, so many people used to die of booze, man. Holy God, consumption took out 111,000 people. By far, the number one cause of death in 1900 in the United States was drinky. Now, if you look through the list, you don't see starvation anywhere here. What you do find is a term called inanition, inanition, I-N-A-N-I-T-I-O-N. Inanition is basically not getting enough nutrients, dying of starvation. Inanition. In 1900, at the time when, you know, everybody was robust and fine, there wasn't any, you know, overweight people. Apparently, that's what he says, that everyone was so thin and trim, because he saw a photo. He saw one photo, and that was clearly the world. You know, science. Inanition in 1900 took 11,352 people. Now, that's the amount of people that died of starvation. A lot more people per ratio died back then of starvation because you could not get enough food. Now, I could try to talk to Steve Drazkowski about the fact that it was much more of an agrarian society back then, and starvation was a much more common thing. Because once again, we're not talking about just the people going hungry. We're talking about the people that starved to death. And as a matter of fact, I kind of did the numbers there. We figured out that if you did the ratios, that basically somewhere around quite a few people, so 70 million people were on a regular basis hungry in the United States in 1900. Now, if you take just the death numbers and you apply them to the population in 2022, 332 million people in the United States. Basically what you find, now once again, this is the people that are dying of starvation, not the people who are just hungry. These are the people starving of dying of starvation. The amount of people that would die is basically 1 out of every 25,000 of us. 1 out of every 25,000 of us died of starvation in the United States. Do you live in a suburb that's got 25,000 people in it? One person died of starvation. Do you live in a place like Bloomington, which I think is 100,000 people live in Bloomington, I believe. Four people in your town died of starvation. That's the average. Back in 1900, the population of the United States was 76.3 million, which means the ratios were much higher back then. Back then, 1 out of every 10,000 people died of starvation every year. I live in Hopkins, which is like 19,000. So basically, pretty much 2 people die in the city of Hopkins of starving to death per year back in 1900. They basically didn't have a lot of food back then. As a matter of fact, the attractive image of the day was of an overweight individual because the impression was he was wealthy enough to have food year round and more than enough food that he needed. Most people were starving to death at that time in this country. A lot of them were, not most, but a lot of them were. And people were indeed dying at a shocking rate of not having enough food. Steve. So don't look back on the golden days because you saw one photo of a school kid. Where are all the fat school kids? And there might have been. He just saw one photo. He doesn't know. But it doesn't stop that idiot from talking, does it? He doesn't know, but it sure doesn't stop him from blabbing and flapping those lippy lips, does it? The reality is one of the reasons why we have starvation and obesity at the same time in the United States is for many people, the most affordable food is the worst food for you. My wife and I, when we started having kids, one of the things she said to me, she goes, I want fresh fruit and vegetables every day. Trust me, that was a challenge. That was a financial burden that, we did. We had fresh fruit, fresh vegetables. And it cost us a lot more. Now, there are a lot of options out there. Canned fruit and vegetables generally is pretty good. Frozen fruit and vegetables, they work pretty well as well. We did fresh fruit and vegetables. But still, if you look at canned fruit and vegetables, you look at frozen fruit and vegetables, you look at fresh fruit, they're expensive. You know what isn't expensive? 3-for-1 bags of corn chips. 2 liters of Mountain Dew. You don't have any money to feed your family. What are you going to do? You're going to go find the food, anything that you can get them. And so, yeah, you do have a problem with obesity in this country, but a lot of that is actually a direct result of the food insecurity because the cheapest food is the worst food for you. It's not science, you idiot. Well, actually, it is kind of science, but I mean, idiot. I just wanted to say idiot to Steve Drazkowski again. I don't know how you become such a cold, heartless human being. I don't. I don't know how you can, once again, this is a sitting senator in the state of Minnesota who in his district has multiple food shelves for people who are hungry in his district. And yet he does not seem to think there's any starving people in his community. I don't know how many people are in his Senate district, but if there's more than 25,000, the ratio is that someone in his district died of starvation last year in his district. The most wealthy, the most powerful country on the planet. And we have people starving to death everywhere because guys like Steve Drazkowski, a guy like him who seems to applaud the idea at giving billions of dollars to the wealthiest people as a great investment, but trying to feed the hungry people of this state is wasting my taxpayer money. You greedy bastard. Seriously. What kind of moron are you? I gotta tell you, it is disturbing. And guess what? He's probably self-gratifying at the idea that Matt McNeil, the liberal guy in town, is taking me to task. Oh, I'll go to your campaign. I'm going to raise funds off this. I'm going to raise funds off this. Dude, you need to get your butt to church. You need to sit down those pews. You need to go open up Matthew, the book of Matthew, and read that. As opposed to start talking about how this is going to be your gateway to a Fox News segment. Maybe you should actually try to be a decent human being. Instead of opening your pie hole because you saw one photo and apparently you're now an authority of the lifestyles of the 1900s because of one photo. without doing any research into why the obesity epidemic is bad in this country. You talked authoritatively about that. And you continue to darken the skies of this state with your commitment to believe that there are no hungry people in the state, anywhere in the state of Minnesota. You are a disgrace, sir. Brainless, dopey, half-witted, idiotic, mindless, short-sighted, moronic, foolish, boneheaded, muttonhead, ignoramus, dunce, dumbbell dork, dimwit, nitwit, moron, fool. Shut up. Not because I'm scared of you, but because you yourself, Steve Drazkowski, have given us a bad reputation in Minnesota as a place of heartless jackasses. And I am not going to sit by while you disgrace my state with your ignorance. You are an embarrassment. The Republican Party of Minnesota should grab you by your stringy little frickin' neck and yank you into a corner and say, shut up. But part of me wants to say, no, keep going, Steve. Because I guarantee you, in 2024, when the Republicans once again don't win back the Minnesota House, we'll call it the Draz effect. Because at the end of the day, no one wants to be like you. For God's sakes, we know everything about you because you put a snarky little comment into your little speech in your Senate hearing and you left a gap for applause. God, talk about high on yourself. I think I've said enough. I think I've said enough about this guy. What a disgrace. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. Give to your local food shelf. They are every day helping the neediest of people in your community, whether you want to believe that they're there or not. They're there. And many of them are working jobs, and they still can't afford food. So please, if you can, don't be like Draz. Be a decent human being and help out the hungry of this state. Please. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. It's the Matt McNeil Show right here on AM 950.
No matter if you're eating out or cooking something at home, eatlocalminnesota.com has you covered with a list of locally owned restaurants and food purveyors. Locally owned Vinaigrette has been offering the finest olive oil and vinegar since 2009. Reintroduce yourself to all the many flavors by tasting before you buy. From darker white balsamic to cold-pressed extra virgin olive oil from all over the world, there is something for everyone. Vinaigrette, located at 50th and Xerxes in Minneapolis, or at vinaigrettemn.com. The Park Tavern is your go-to destination for fun. Enjoy the fantastic food like their pizzas, burgers, and sandwiches, the best bowling in Minnesota, their wildly popular outdoor patio, great drink specials, all the big games on their numerous screens, and it's the perfect place for your next private event, even large gatherings for over 200. The Park Tavern is your go-to destination for everyone. Have fun at the Park Tavern, Louisiana Avenue, north of Highway 7 in St. Louis Park.
Hi, this is Frank Brown, owner of Minuteman Press Uptown, Minnesota's only minority-owned union printing company. We have big news. We've moved to North Minneapolis.
Why did you move?
As a Black business owner, I wanted to be part of the North Minneapolis community to provide jobs.
Are there other reasons you moved there?
We have bigger new equipment and outgrew the other location.
What kind of new equipment do you have?
We have new equipment that allows us to print quality signage and banners. We also have a new inkjet printer, printing larger sheets, improving production efficiencies.
Is the new location easy to find?
It's not only easy to find, it's more convenient with plenty of parking. We are now located on Washington Avenue North off I-94 and the Dowling exit.
So do you still print everything?
We print more than everything. We have over 175 Google reviews with a 5-star rating. Call 612-870-0777 or visit mpuptown.com. That's mpuptown.com. We print everything.
I got to put out a correction. I have been informed that back then the consumption they were referring to was not. Now, there was an article about London in the 1500s that basically said alcohol and consumption took this many people. Apparently, I was just looking, the consumption as referred to in the 1900s is actually referring to tuberculosis, which, David, thank you very much. I appreciate the correction on that. See, this is what you call being a decent human being. Hey, I was wrong about something. I will correct it. Thank you very much, David. Ta-da! See? No weaker for it. Needless to say, a lot of people did die of liquor. Holy cow. That's for sure. 952-946-6205. It just amazes me how little these people know, but yet how authoritatively they talk about it. It is amazing. And you see what I just did there? I made a mistake. I will correct myself. Don't expect the same thing from Steve Drazkowski. Don't expect the same thing. Elliot Engen loves his job, according to this is the Racket calling out NPR, and I kind of agree with the Racket here. A story on Elliot Engen, the Republican from Lino Lakes, the first Republican Gen Z lawmaker. He's 24. He's had the job since January, and if you listen to that story that NPR did on him, he sounds like he's like middle of the roader. I mean, my God, NPR went out of their way to make it sound like he was the golden boy, the savior of us all, and I'll say they make him sound Wellstonian. It's what the Racket described it. Basically, though, you need to learn about Engen because he's like a lot of these Republicans who will come on out there and say, hey, I'm not a divider, I'm a uniter. Well, only if you agree with them. Only if I'm here with, he said, this is the quote from the American. We actually have a heart. You get to help people. I am aim to unify, not divide. All right. He apparently founded the Hamlin University chapter of Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk's reactionary weirdo factory, churning out boilerplate campus culture war stuff. Engen says he no longer supports the group in his wise old age of 24. All right. No, that was last week, man. What are you talking about? Engen's first two votes on the job he loves, where he's aiming to be to unify, not divide. He voted against expanding abortion access and a vote against restoring voting rights for felons. He introduced a bill that would militarize schools and enrich contractors. We have passion, we have energy, and we have ideas, Engen declares at the close of the puff piece that was only gently alluded to the tired and regressive nature of those ideas. He also put a video. Basically, if you go find him, you find out exactly who he is. Basically the Racket's point, and I stand by the Racket on this one wholeheartedly. Don't try to take a Republican who is desperate to be portrayed as something other than what the Republicans have become and turn him into, a middle of the road guy. What are their votes? There's a lot of Republicans that say, I'm trying to work with the other side, but then they never vote with the other side. Not once, not on the least things. They'll say, like, I'm not against taking away women's rights, but then every time they vote, they have a vote to preserve women's rights, they vote against it. They say that I'm not against environmental rules, but every time there's a vote for environmental rules, they vote against it. I'm here for the working class, but they've got a track record of voting for things that hurt the working class. So, it's kind of disappointing to see, what is generally a respected news outlet kind of put a fluff piece out like this because, yeah, I guarantee you he's saying thank you all the way to the bank because he's going to be running on that one. Remember this one where they allowed me to say I was a unifier? And it doesn't matter if you actually put out the correction later on because he'll run on the original story. So nicely done. Don't get me wrong. I can find, trust me, I can find problems with pretty much any politician. Ron Latz might be, my Senator Ron Latz might be the exception to that. Rick Hansen's a pretty solid individual. And Jamie Becker Finn is an absolute angel. But Walls does pretty good too. But most of them, I can find something I don't like about them. It's not my job to go on out there and try to make them look better than they are. As the racket says, finally, a Republican who will obsess over all things woke, fight environmental regulations, fortify the brutal state, and demonize taxes. Yeah, thank God that Republican is finally here. Hour 2, that's coming up next.
Nightingale is your cozy, comfortable neighborhood restaurant in the Whittier neighborhood at 26th and Lindale. Nightingale has patio, dining room, and bar seating available. Plus, they still have takeout and delivery. Their menu has lots of delicious options like the famous Nightingale burger and fries, ginger tamari chicken wings, smoked chicken liver pate, and more. They're open from 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. daily with their full menu until midnight. So make the friendly neighborhood Nightingale your go-to restaurant in South Minneapolis. Place an order, make a reservation, and more at nightingalempls.com.
Next time on Philosophy Talk, science and skepticism.
Our understanding evolves over time. How can we explain that to impatient people who want to undermine science?
Well, maybe we could give them a quick lesson on probability.
Okay, but how do you talk to someone who doubts that the Earth is round?
I don't know, maybe launch them into space to see for themselves?
Science and skepticism. Next time on Philosophy Talk.
Philosophy Talk, every Sunday at 8 a.m. on AM 950.
It's Brad Friedman, host of the Bradcast, weeknights at 7 on AM 950. KTNF, St. Louis Park, Minneapolis, St. Paul, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
AP News, I'm Ed Donahue. China's President Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin talked in Moscow today about Ukraine. China has a plan that includes a ceasefire. The West thinks it favors Russia. Meantime, the U.S. is speeding up the delivery of Abrams tanks to Ukraine.
After months of Ukraine pressing for the heavily armored and armed tanks, the Pentagon announced in January it would send a newer variant of the Abrams. But that would have taken a while.
We were projecting it would be probably over a year.
Now officials have decided to send a refurbished older model Abrams.
This is about getting this important combat capability into the hands of the Ukrainians sooner rather than later.
Brigadier General Pat Ryder says they can come from existing Army stocks and will be easier for Ukrainian forces to learn how to both use and maintain them. The goal is to have the 70-ton tanks on the battlefield by the fall. Sagar Magani, Washington.
Stocks finished higher. The Dow gained 316 points. Even bank stocks rebounded after the collapse of two banks. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says banks are stable and sound.
The government's recent actions have demonstrated our resolute commitment to take the necessary steps to ensure that depositors' savings and the banking system remains safe.
Security is tight in New York, Washington, and elsewhere in anticipation of an announcement from New York about charges against former President Donald Trump. He himself predicted an arrest today. Trump supporters like Thais Diaz are outside the Manhattan courthouse.
He just gets treated unfairly, especially by the media. No one is perfect, but when it comes to him, it's like they specifically attack him.
Oklahoma's top court has ruled women have a right to abortion when pregnancy risks their health, but not in a medical emergency. This is AP News.
CD paid for by Christian Care Ministry.
Let's see, if something costs less, but people are happier with it, that sounds like something to look into, and that's MediShare. Maybe you've heard switching to MediShare to pay for healthcare can save the typical family $500 a month, and that's huge. But it's also true that people are way more satisfied after making the switch, too. The customer satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. MediShare works. It's been around for more than a quarter century, and members have shared more than $3 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge nationwide PPO network. So, yeah, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. A very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need. 855-51-BIBLE. That's 855-51-BIBLE. 855-51-BIBLE.
Do yourself a favor and check out the amazing cuisine of eatlocalminnesota.com. More than just a website, eatlocalminnesota.com provides you with the best local and independently owned restaurants in the Twin Cities. Specializing in Szechuan and Peking cuisine, the Great Wall Chinese restaurant has been a local favorite since 1981. They offer one of the most extensive menus in the Twin Cities. Favorites include the sesame chicken, imperial beef, and Peking duck. The Great Wall restaurant is located off 45th and France, with takeout available too. More at greatwallrestaurant.us. The next time you're out in South Minneapolis, make Nightingale off 26th and Lyndale your go-to dining option. It's a comfortable neighborhood restaurant that features a delicious menu of American classics, plus a wide drink and cocktail selection. Nightingale has dining room and bar seating available, plus takeout and delivery. Current hours are 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. daily with the full menu until midnight. More at nightingalempls.com.
Would you let animals pick your insurance? Do you really need to experience mayhem to get the best rates? Or how about a celebrity quarterback or fake university saving you money? There's a lot of marketing stunts when it comes to insurance, but what you really need is someone looking out for you. Call Array Insurance, and they will work hard to find you the best insurance coverage and rates. To avoid gimmicks, and call Cheryl at Array, 763-504-3067, or arrayinsurance.com. Array Insurance, working hard for you.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for cloudy skies today with a high near 41. Tonight, rain with a low around 32. And Wednesday, cloudy with a high near 38. Cafe Latte is a hot spot for American eats and house-made desserts in a cafeteria-style setup, plus a pizza and wine bar. Cafe Latte believes ingredients matter, so that's why they never use artificial flavors, colors, or preservatives. Dine in at the restaurant off Victoria and Grand at St. Paul, or place a takeout order at cafelatte.com.
Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. It's the Matt McNeil Show. That's, I think, one of the saddest parts about America today is that we actually have the working poor. We have people who are working full-time jobs, sometimes 2 full-time jobs, and they are still living in shelters because they cannot afford a house. And they are still having to go to food shelves because they cannot afford food. And there's always a lot of people that make donations to food banks and food shelves at Thanksgiving and around Christmas, which is great. But my goodness, they have tremendous need now. If you can, find your local food shelf. There's a lot in the metro area. There's a lot around the state of Minnesota. Make a donation, because regardless of what Steve Drazkowski says, because of his vast research of, I ain't seen nobody, the reality is there are starving people in his district, and for God's sakes, I hope that you go down there and, shame him by showing up and giving food in the people of Mazeppa in those areas, because apparently he's not. 952-946-6205. Maybe he is. Maybe he is. He says it. He says they don't exist. My guess is he's probably not doing too much as far as helping out the local community. Patrick, when was the last time you were at the Renaissance Festival?
It has actually been a very, very long time since I've been there.
They might have a problem here. So this is from Axios. Scott County is now giving the Minnesota Renaissance Festival. We've talked about this a few weeks ago. The Renaissance Festival, the parking over there is a freaking nightmare. And it's not just the parking. The backup to get into turn in sometimes goes all the way back to that exit ramp. Is it County 18 down there where it's Mystic Lake?
Yeah, something like that.
It's miles of backups, completely closing down neighboring roads, streets. It makes it impossible to live down there. Scott County has finally said enough. They're giving the Minnesota Renaissance Festival 10 weeks to come up with a traffic and parking management plan, or else officials will shut down the event. Traffic to get into last year's festival in Shakopee was often backed up for miles, blocking major area roads and frustrating fairgoers as well as residents. The county threatened in December to pull its operating permits in 2023 if changes weren't made. Last year, the festival saw more than 300,000 visitors. An amendment approved at a Scott County Board of Commissioners meeting Tuesday requires, among other things, the operator Mid-America Festivals Corporation to A, create and present a transit and traffic management plan for approval on June 1st, B, secure busing options, potentially including the park and ride lots, encouraging patrons to take the bus, 3, hire a professional parking company to manage the site, 4, implement real-time messaging system to show if lots are full. Plus, a date-specific parking voucher will be required for each vehicle, and $5,000 to $7,000 will be issued per day, depending on if the other requirements are met. Neither county staff nor the festival could share details of what the potential traffic management plan would look like. A festival spokesman said in a meeting, the plan will come later. You got 10 weeks, so you got some time. Several commissioners added they didn't want to shut down the festival and had hope for the future. I wish I didn't have to get to this point, but I think we've got something better that's worth going forward with, said board chair Tom Wolf. Mid-American Festivals Corporation will present its plans to the board June 1st. The Renaissance Festival can't operate unless the proposals are approved. It's scheduled to run this year on weekends from August 19th to the 1st. Someone told me, and I don't know if this is true or not, that if you look at the parking lot, it's basically a field. It's like if you go to an apple orchard in fall. There's not like a paved parking lot. Well, I guess I should say maybe there are some apple orchards that's got a full-fledged paved parking lot, but most of them it's you park over on the field and then you leave. And that's kind of the setup you get. Someone told me that for them to do the bus thing would require them to basically pave it. And that's a pretty pricey thing, and that the company does not want to do that because obviously you can't send necessarily buses into an area where it's not, at the very least, a fairly flat surface, if not a paved surface. And the times I've gone down to the Renaissance Festival, it's pretty wavy in the car. Getting down there, it's not exactly the flattest ground that you'll ever come across out there. It's going to be interesting to see. I know a lot of people that love it. I know a lot of people that work at it, but your success is actually a detriment now. And maybe that means, and can I just say the Shakopee? I mean, maybe it comes to a point where we've got to move them out of that area and move them someplace else. And I don't necessarily, I mean, I'm not in charge of anything. I'm not saying it should or shouldn't necessarily, but if it's this successful and it's this big, which it is, well, maybe we have to, it's outgrown the area it's in. And if no one wants to invest in the infrastructure needed to make a convenient, bus option, you got to have all the people park over, at, someplace off of 169, just north of there. And then everyone can hike on down, you got to take a bus on down like you do for the state fair. If that's not an option, maybe it's time to move it. I don't know where you'd want it because you can't just put it in a parking lot. You got to put it someplace where it's outdoorsy a little bit. I don't know. I don't know where you could put it, where someone would have an area that would be suitable for it, with a huge parking lot, with a massive parking lot right next door, or at least the ability to do the park and ride there. So 952-946-6205. One other quick story here before we get into we got, of course, Patrick Cooligan coming in this afternoon. I want to bring up, there's apparently Hopkins High School administrators do not believe there's a threat to students on Tuesday after a student's social media post containing a photo of a rifle with references to the school circulated online, causing families to raise concerns. Now, I will be honest, I've got a child that goes to Hopkins, so I saw this morning myself, but it's not kind of what you think it would be. It's not like there's going to be a threat. Here's what it said. According to Hopkins School Principal Crystal Ballard, the social media images contained a photo of a rifle and the words, Hopkins High School students shall not be infringed. So the way I'm taking this, Hopkins High School students shall not be infringed. I'm taking this more as some sort of weird Second Amendment mantra. That's what at least it sounds like to me. And it doesn't sound like it's a threat per se. It's just one of these people. Here's the problem this kid doesn't seem to understand who did this, is that you're looking at, in this day and age of school shootings, which still are happening pretty much almost on a daily basis in this country, you can't be putting guns on images, memes, T-shirts, flags, and thinking that somehow that's going to win over the crowd at a school, because pretty much this generation's growing up with near daily gun slaughters in our school districts. And so the idea of that somehow, some way, you're going to basically find some sort of system that is going to, or some sort of image that's going to somehow win people over to your side, I think that's just, it's misguided. Doesn't mean, hey, fine, you want to be a Second Amendment guy, that's freedom of speech, you have the right to that. But at the same time, you can't be acting like, well, why isn't everybody much more appreciative and open to the idea of the vehicles of death that have been a scourge and an infection on our school districts in the country? Why is everyone against this? Email to families on Midnight Ballard said the Minnetonka Police Department would be present in the school on Tuesday morning, and extra adults would be at external doors, the hallways, and the common spaces. Currently working with Minnetonka Police Department as well as the family of the scholar who created the post. She said, we do not believe there's any threat to scholars at Hopkins. In today's climate, however, any reference to guns or violence is unsettling. We should all take all references very seriously. I would agree. I mean, to gun kooks, can I just say this to the gun guys? Do you really have a hard time so say someone's family member, loved one was gunned down. Do you really have a hard time understanding why that person might not appreciate the gun? And you can sit there and say, well, they can't infringe on my rights. Yeah, but we think you're kind of horrible when you go out there and you take a look at my gun. Look at my gun. It's there. It's my gun. You look like loon balls, man. That's what you look like. I don't think you guys realize or understand that this is not endearing yourself to. I mean, let's face it. I mean, this is all you've got. You've got to turn yourself into the victims because people hate the fact that I'm waving around a gun that basically on a daily basis is killing thousands of people in this country. Well, I mean, not thousands, hundreds of people maybe in this country. Was it 50,000 people last year killed by guns in this country? 50,000. But heaven forbid we actually try to stop this or try to do anything to, work around this. 952-946-6205. 952-946-6205 is the phone number. Patrick Cooligan joins Brett. One of the things we're going to talk about, apparently, you know how the city is saying they want to basically try to rein in the disability cost because so many of the police officers, when basically it became clear that you're not going to be able to, well, at least on paper, not going to be able to, abuse the citizens of the city anymore. Basically, all of a sudden, I've got PTSD. Now, I'm not saying some of them didn't have PTSD, but there sure seems to be an ATM card for people that retire, and then it almost seems like someone, maybe the union, I don't know, has told them exactly how take as much money as you can from the city. Well, the city is saying they're going to change up the rules here, and a law firm and some police lobbying is basically trying to stop them changing the disability rules as far as this goes. Not saying that, and by the way, the city, what I understand about this, and we'll hear more here in a second, the way I understand this is it's not that they don't want to pay it, it's that before you resign and get a check, that you basically have to go through a PTSD evaluation course and see if it's something that you can recover from. And it'll be interesting to see what the case may be. Needless to say, they've got more on this to come. It's Patrick Cooligan with Brett right here on AM 950.
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. Brett Johnson with you here on a Tuesday afternoon. Well, right now we're joined by Patrick Cooligan, who is the editor-in-chief of the Minnesota Reformer. Great resource for the latest in Minnesota news and politics over at minnesotareformer.com, as we are going to be talking about some news from the state legislature and also how the legislature might be trying to rein in some of the very exploding costs we've been seeing when it comes to disability and PTSD of first responders. Patrick, thanks so much for coming back on the show today.
Always a pleasure.
Absolutely. So let's start off talking about Dina Winter's article titled "Law Firm and Some Police Are Lobbying Hard Against a Bill to Rein in Disability Costs." And this has to do with the fact that a lot of police departments, of course, have had a number of police officers claim PTSD, including the city of Minneapolis, as well as other first responders. And that, of course, has hurt the overall fund that is used to pay out these types of payments. So what exactly is the current state of the police and fire retirement fund in Minnesota, and what would this bill at the Minnesota State Legislature do and affect this?
So there's an interesting series of events that begins in 2019 when the legislature approves a measure that gives an automatic presumption if a police or firefighter is diagnosed with PTSD, there's an automatic presumption that it's work related. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And then you get the George Floyd killing. And I mean, we could probably debate about why this is the case, but a lot of police officers, especially in Minneapolis, but all over, wind up with PTSD diagnoses and leave the job. They take a duty disability retirement, or they take a workers' comp settlement. And as a result, it's really shrunk the size of police departments, especially in Minneapolis, and create all kinds of problems there. It's also done a bit of a number on the police and fire retirement funds, and so lawmakers, at the behest of cities and counties, especially, who are having to deal with this, as well as the it's known as PERA, the Public Employee Retirement Association. They say, look, we need some help here because we're just getting killed by these disability payments. And one aspect of it is that if they have a disability, the local government has to pay their health insurance through the age of 65. So you can imagine somebody at the age of 32 winds up with a disability and they leave the force, and then the local government has to pay that for 30 years. So at the legislature, what they're trying to do is the stated intention is to get folks with PTSD treatment, and so that they can then return to work. The idea here is that this is a treatable condition, and we ought to be able to get these folks back to work. And so they've created kind of some new conditions in the hopes that rather than just sending folks off with a duty disability retirement, we can get them treated and back to work. And then they've also made some other adjustments, and it gets a little in the weeds, complicated here, but essentially they're trying to cut the disability and duty disability retirement costs, and so that's what the bill would do. But they're hitting some pretty tough resistance.
Yeah, I would certainly imagine so. So how have some of the first responders and the law firm representing these different first responders responded to the bill, and how have they been lobbying against it?
So there's a law firm based in Eden Prairie, led by a guy named Donald Muser, who has said that his firm has represented hundreds of Minneapolis cops and firefighters who filed workers' comp claims and retired early after Floyd's murder. They say they represent, I think, something like 80%, or 3/4 of Minnesota first responders who apply for disability pensions. And they use their social media and their network to whip up some opposition, and have done quite a bit of organizing around this, and got first responders to come out to a hearing on Monday. Apparently they had a meeting called very short notice on Sunday, and got a lot of people to come out, and then they came to the hearing on Monday, and they shared emotional testimony. And I mean, I don't mean to minimize the personal pain and suffering that a lot of these folks have gone through on the job, whether it's through physical injuries, and then also the PTSD. I think that there's some skepticism, and I think I think rightfully so, about the wave of PTSD claims in the wake of George Floyd's police murder. And so I think it's an interesting conflict at the legislature, and it's got really big long-term fiscal ramifications, because at this current pace, something has to happen. Either current officers and other first responders are going to have to pay more into the fund, or the state is going to have to kick in, and nobody wants either of those.
And final question for you on this is how have lawmakers been responding to concerns on this? Have they been getting cold feet or having to make adjustments to this bill? I'm curious how they've been responding because, as you said, the resistance has been pretty fierce thus far from some of the first responders.
Yeah, I think a lot of lawmakers, like a lot of us, have connections to law enforcement. My late grandfather was a police officer in Ohio. And, I mean, everybody can kind of, everybody knows somebody who's a firefighter or a police officer, first responder. And so I think everybody's pretty sympathetic. But I think there was also some consternation last night in the way that our reporter Dina Winter described it. The chair of the committee, the pensions committee, thought that there was some of the attacks were unfair on a bill that they've been working on for years now, and in fact, the vice chair of the committee actually threatened to clear the room when the folks got a little unruly. So we'll have to see, and then of course you have the shifting politics of the police union. Generally, Democrats stick by unions and vice versa, but that's really no longer true of the police union anymore. And so, I think those politics certainly are going to enter the equation here.
You can read more about Dina's piece over at minnesotareformer.com. One other article I wanted to talk to you about, actually, this is a column from Eric Harris Bernstein, who is title of the column is Ignore the Big Numbers, Surpluses Can Quickly Become Budget Deficits, as he argues that despite the fact that we have a $17 billion surplus, he says permanent tax cuts could lead to whiplash deficits and cuts in public programs in the future, which sounds an awfully lot like the Pawlenty years. So he really seems to hit home this point about one-time money versus, continuing funds. So tell us a little bit about the difference between one-time money and ongoing revenue and why this is big for budgeting, because as he argues, this has a pretty massive impact in terms of how these surpluses are calculated.
Right. So we've talked about this before, but we hear this number $17.5 billion. It sounds like a huge number. That's the surplus. But the reality is the structural surplus, that's money that we foresee being there at the end of this next 2-year budget cycle, is only $5 billion. The other 12.5, you can really only use it for one-time expenses. You can't create new programs because then you wouldn't have any money to fund those programs going forward. So that's the first point, is that the surplus is much smaller than that $17.5 billion that we keep hearing about. And then the other thing is, if you give a significant, permanent, ongoing tax cut, especially with, as they've been debating at the legislature, this cut on Social Security benefits, that could easily be, you could turn us into structural deficit. All it would take would be, a significant downturn, and then meanwhile, especially in that Social Security piece, because with the aging population, that number just gets bigger and bigger very quickly, the number that you lose through that tax cut. And then now you're in a structural deficit, and you have to turn around and raise taxes, which is never politically fun, or cut programs. And so whatever progress you may have made in an area, like you can imagine, they're now going to give free lunch to all students, breakfast and lunch. Well, now we have to claw that back. I mean, just imagine the political and the policy implications of that. And so what Eric is arguing, and he's become a really fantastic commentator on fiscal issues for us. What he's saying is, look, you should be careful here, because this surplus can go away very quickly. And you mentioned the Pawlenty years, and I think that's exactly what happened when the state had big surpluses from the late 90s economic boom, and then it all just evaporated, and then the whole state went through like a lost decade.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't we somewhat correct how these are calculated in terms of, I thought before we didn't include inflation when they were talking about the expense part of the budget. Did that get fixed, or how did that work? I thought there was somewhat of a fix to make these numbers at least a little more accurate than they might appear to the naked eye.
Right. So in the what had happened, this started in the Pawlenty years, was when the state economic forecasters put together their their forecast for the future, they did not include inflation when they were factoring the cost of government going forward. They did make that change, so that's a healthy thing that we're being more transparent about the cost of government. But that doesn't change the fact that surplus can easily turn to a deficit with a good downturn, with a recession, and a big tax cut. So what Eric is saying is just be careful, and if you're going to give tax relief, just do it one time. Use that one-time money that you have. You have a huge pot of money there. That's $12.5 billion, and give out rebates. But going forward, you don't necessarily want to make these tax cuts permanent.
You can read his column over MinnesotaReformer.com from Eric Harris Bernstein. We've had him on the show before too, and as he said, he kind of provides a sobering look at those state budgets, and oftentimes they can be a little deceiving. A final question for you, Patrick. What else are you looking for at the state legislature this week? What should we be looking at?
So they're really coming down to it with the state budget. I think apparently they put out budget targets for each of these kind of big, broad areas. So I'm looking to look at those today. And then, they have this week and next, and then they go on spring break, and then we're kind of into the sprint at that point. And especially with the 2-year budgets that they're going to have to craft, and we'll see what they're going to do. And then, of course, I think cannabis is also getting a major bit of a rework, and we'll have to see where that goes. I still expect that to pass this year, but I think it's probably going to come down at the end. I think the hope that they would pass that in this lull before the budget is probably evaporated as they tweak that bill to make a bunch of different interest groups happy or less mad, I guess I should say. And get the wrangle and Senate votes they need in that closely contested 34-33 Senate.
Well, you can read more about that over MinnesotaReformer.com. MinnesotaReformer.com. Make sure you go there for the latest in Minnesota news and politics. Patrick Kulikan is the editor-in-chief of the Minnesota Reformer. As always, Patrick, thanks for coming on the show this week.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
All right, let's take a break and send things back over to Matt McNeil.
Do you have a car you no longer need but don't want to jump through all the hoops to sell yourself? Rudy Luther Toyota can help with their We Buy program. It's really simple. Go to rudyluthertoyota.com, click on the We Buy link, type in some basic information, and Rudy Luther will get you an instant and accurate offer. Then set an appointment, and after a quick verification of the vehicle, Rudy Luther will set you up with your payment with a check on the spot in most cases. We Buy, it's that simple. For more details or to sell your vehicle, head to rudyluthertoyota.com. That's rudyluthertoyota.com.
It's an absolute must for any true foodie. Vinaigrette at 50th and Xerxes in South Minneapolis offers premium oils and vinegars for the most discriminating of tastes. This is Sarah Piepenberg, owner of Vinaigrette. We bottle on-site, there's no guesswork, and you get to taste test each and every oil and vinegar we offer. Our direct relationship with the growers ensures an uncompromised level of satisfaction. When you need to know you're cooking with the finest ingredients, first contact the independently owned Vinaigrette, 50th and Xerxes in South Minneapolis. Online at vinaigrettemn.com.
Hey, it's Patrick. It's March, and believe it or not, it's almost time for spring cleaning. You're not the only one who's tired of winter this year, because your carpets and air ducts are too. Think about the dust, dander, and bacteria living and breeding in your carpet, upholstery, air ducts, and more with nowhere to go. There's only one real way to get rid of that gunk in your home, and that's by calling our cleaning heroes at Zero Res. With Zero Res's platinum-rated cleaning systems and patented ZR water, they will extract all that nasty out of your home, and it will look and smell like a home should. And with the Zero Res Gotta Love It guarantee, you know they will take care of you. This month, get 3 rooms Zero Resified from the Twin Cities' #1 carpet cleaner, starting at $129. And take $75 off your air duct cleaning as well to get that true spring cleaning feel. Call 952-0-RES or go to ZeroResMinnesota.com right now and say you want the AM 950 special. Zero Res.
Turn to Auto Technical with your vehicle donation. Even though Auto Technical is a small nonprofit, we have helped more families with transportation than any organization in Minnesota. Since '94, we have reconditioned donated vehicles so they have a higher tax benefit. Call Richard at 612-919-5526, 612-919-5526, or autotech.org.
Habitation presents a radio drama. To buy or not to buy, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler to compromise and live with a sectional that doth not fit my space, or to take up arms against a sea of mediocrity, and by opposing it, to rest, to be comfortable, to enjoy the space that is my home. Hi, this is Gregory Rich, owner of Habitation Design and host of Drink in the Style. I'd like to personally invite you to our new showroom located in the District Edina, 7777 Washington Avenue South. Habitation, put some drama into your interior design.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for cloudy skies today with a high near 41. Tonight, rain with a low around 32. And Wednesday, cloudy with a high near 38. Cafe Latte is a hot spot for American eats and house-made desserts in a cafeteria-style setup plus a pizza and wine bar. Cafe Latte believes ingredients matter, so that's why they never use artificial flavors, colors, or preservatives. Dine in at the restaurant off Victoria and Grand at St. Paul or place a takeout order at cafelatte.com.
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. It's the Matt McNeil Show. I'm still rolling around in my head that Steve Drazkowski basically said, hey, there's a fat person in Minnesota, henceforth there, and I'm paraphrasing this. There's a fat person in Minnesota, so henceforth, how can you say there's hunger? And he claims to be Christian. Oh, my gosh. Wow, 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. Hey, I saw a photo one time. One photo. That was the one photo we took. It was pretty comprehensive. I mean, you pretty much can tell everything off that one photo. I want to bring up something the Rackets brought up, and I think other news outlets have brought this up as well. And something I have actually become convinced of as a necessity just because of what happened to me with getting the back broken. And by the way, can I make a quick side note here? Senator Tory Westrom, once again, you and I do not agree. Found out, did you hear about him? He actually broke ribs. He broke ribs on that snowmobile accident. As a person who had a broken rib myself, all my best, heal up. I disagree with you, but I take no joy in you getting injured, my friend. So heal up and all my best. I hope you can get back to St. Paul before too much longer. Ugh. With my injury, the way it went was 3 months. So the back got broken on December 8th for 3 months until March 8th. March 10th, technically, though. I could not fall, period. Now, it's not like I was getting ready to do, parkour or something like that. No, I wasn't about to do my Cirque du Soleil act, no. But they basically said, if you've got this, you have to have the rods and screws that are now in my back now permanently. More metal than man. That to give them the time you cannot jostle them. You've got to be pretty ginger. You got to be very careful. For the first month I was at home, I had a walker. Yeah, I had, to give me extra brace, extra stability, just because we didn't want anything bad to happen. And it was kind of one of those cases where I heard from a lot of friends who said, oh, my mom had a broken back. She got home, immediately took a tumble in the shower, tried to pick something up off the ground, broke the back even more. Yeah, that's real tough. So, yeah, there was a concerted effort that I didn't want to do this, damage myself. So basically, I was stuck in my house for all of December and for a good portion of January. Part of the reason why is because it's kind of tough to be out there. Getting around is not easy, especially if you have a impediment that makes things more difficult. A wheelchair, a walker, a cane. One of the things which has been interesting to watch is this sudden realization that, dear Lord, the sidewalks in Minneapolis, St. Paul are not cleared. And the thing which is disappointing is that it really, it right now, if I understand it, the way that it works is that everyone's responsible for their own place. Now, I don't quite know if that's true, because there is part of this. Who clears all the plaza and everything over by the US Bank Stadium? I'm presuming the city does. Maybe, well, the taxpayers do one way or the other, whether that's through the US Bank building, the stadium itself, or the city does it. But the racket following in, as we plow literally and figuratively through the 8th snowiest winter in Twin Cities history, genuine interest has been sparked around the concept that once hit Minnesota ears like a utopian fiction, municipal shoveling programs. Racket explored the very real possibility that other cities like Burlington, Vermont, Buffalo, New York, and Montreal, last winter, members of the Minneapolis City Council recently championed the idea. The issue is cost and practicality, countered Mayor Jacob Fry, adding that it's not a top priority. Worth noting that Fry recently found time to launch a French fry-themed talk show. I have no idea about that. It would cost taxpayers a pretty penny, one austerity-brained TV news outlet interjected. The Star Tribune reported a figure of $47 per resident each year to never worry about shoveling again. Which, frankly, I think that if you offered to everyone that you would not have to shovel your sidewalk again, all you have to do is pay the city $47 per year and it's done. I got to think that a lot of people would be on board with that. That sounds like a pretty good valuation. Jordan Leak, L-E-I-C-K, is glad the city council is studying the possibility of municipal shoveling, but the avid Minneapolis walker is more concerned about the on-the-ground reality of our current model. One day I was waiting at my bus stop and I saw a young woman slip and fall right next to the stop. And Marcia Holmes, resident, said, fortunately, she was okay, but I was really angry because the owner of that lot hadn't been clearing their sidewalk all winter. Imagine if that had been my disabled friend or one of my family members with osteoporosis. That would have been horrible. The fall inspired Leak to tour every block in his neighborhood that's included within the pedestrian priority network, the city's 298-mile grid of streets that represents where people frequently walk. Those streets were supposed to be prioritized for the ease, comfort, and safety of pedestrians, though that's not what he discovered last week. He filed more than 80 reports of uncleared sidewalks to 311, including, or 311, I should say, 311, including 60 plus around the PPN route. He says 17 of those properties belong to Millennium Management, whose owner, Jim Ishins, has been a target of code violations for decades. Millennium didn't immediately respond to Racket's request for comment. As Leak snapped photos of a particularly icy patch, he says a mail carrier told him that she wanted to outright skip the address. I'm not falling. I can't afford that. Can the city afford a $20 million annual program to make life easier for more livable half the year? We sure think so, especially considering the fact that there is little taxpayer hand-wringing over the $60 million the city paid Minneapolis Police Department misconduct cases in 2019, 2022. And that's one of the things. I mean, we'll pick the thing. I mean, my gosh, the city paid how much money for a football stadium? The city has to pay for crap police work constantly. How much has the city handed out for PTSD? Not saying it's not valid, but I'm just saying this is something the city has to pay. $20 million annually, I don't think is necessarily the budget breaker that Jacob Fry thinks it is. Leek, who serves on the Marcy Homes Neighborhood Association, knows year-round walkability is important in his student-healthy majority renter neighborhood. For now, he urges like-minded folks to utilize the only resource available, 311 and online reporting. I'd like to see the city prioritize the speedy inspection and clearing of sidewalks that are on the pedestrian priority networks, and also proactively crack down on property managers who have an extensive history of noncompliance for their properties. He says, reflecting that his scouting mission, I think some people are currently willing to risk paying a fine or two because it's a lot cheaper and easier than actually clearing the sidewalks. So, say that number that they quote in here is true, $47. I do not live on a sidewalked block. My sister and brother-in-law do in St. Louis Park. Now, they live mid-street, so basically they have to shovel their own walk. But if you didn't have to shovel the sidewalk at all from November to March, especially those heavier snows, would you? Now, I do want to make sure I do to the counterpoint to this does make one. Burlington, Vermont is not Minneapolis, St. Paul. Buffalo, New York is not Minneapolis, St. Paul. Montreal is, but that's Canadian. And the Canadians, if you've never seen any of the video footage of the Canadian orchestrated road cleaning crews, holy God, are they magnificent to watch. They, in Toronto and Montreal, they do amazing. It is a science, but it is a much bigger deal up there. I mean, it's truly 5 months of the year you have to deal with snow, as opposed to Minneapolis, where, yeah, you might have to deal with snow 3-4 months a year, maybe an outlying snowstorm, but nothing too regular. As a person who does not live in the city of Minneapolis, I'm lucky I did not live in the city of Minneapolis, because I think my mobility would have been even more dramatically impeded if I had to live in the city and I couldn't even walk the block down to where the car was, because two of my neighbors just don't care. I ain't gonna do it, even though they might know their elderly neighbors. Maybe what we do is, can you sue the individual property owner for this? Could you? I mean, if I fell and broke my leg because the guy hadn't cleaned the sidewalk, can I sue the individual in that house? I don't know if you can. Patrick, if you can, get the chance, see if you can type that into a search engine. Can you sue in Minneapolis if someone hasn't cleared their sidewalk and you you slip there? If you get the chance, okay? See if that's something you can do, because, I mean, maybe that would be the case. All of a sudden you have someone who has got $1 million lawsuit against them. All of a sudden, I guarantee you, at least in that neighborhood, everyone's going to be out there every snowstorm shoveling snow. I think it's time. We are a city of snow. We are a city of winter. We've got fantastic summers, don't get me wrong. We've got very nice falls. I'm going to quote the very funny Brittle Star comedian out of Canada saying, spring looks like you're cleaning up a home invasion. Yeah, I thought that was a pretty good line. It does. Spring is god-awful ugly in the state of Minnesota because everything's damp and dirty. And until it's all cleaned up, yeah. But the reality is that we have a substantial winter here. And I don't know the number of people with handicaps in Minneapolis. I don't. I got to imagine there's a lot. And especially if you're in a wheelchair, winter is to a point of prison sentence. If you're an elderly person who has to use a walker, I mean, have you tried to go through a snowbank with a walker? It's not easy. I've had to try that. It's not easy. And I was lucky enough to have someone on either side of me trying to get through it when that happened. Maybe, I know, heaven forbid, we actually get some accountability from the Minneapolis Police Department. put in some actual training that says, hey, by the way, stop doing crap that basically makes the city pay out 8-figure settlements because you guys are too aggressive. And we could take that money and, I don't know, make everyone's life better. I mean, if you think about it, the settlement in the George Floyd case, wouldn't that be, 2 years of cleaning snow off the street? So maybe, just maybe, if you teach police officers not to kill an individual in the streets of the city, hey, guess what? There's 2 years of fun and sidewalk cleaning right there. So maybe, just maybe, we look at this as a, part of an upside of police reform. Maybe, just maybe, when we have people who are saying, we can't lose the football team. We need to spend another $20 billion to keep them here. And people go, yeah, we don't want to lose the Vikings. We don't want to lose the Vikings. If I can say it, the heck with the sports teams. How about we make life better here for the people who live here? And I do have the question. Are the residents of the city of Minneapolis stuck having to clean their own sidewalks off while the city goes on out there and has municipal cleanup of the streets and sidewalks around the sports stadiums? Now, the Twin Stadium is not so much of a deal because it's, well, at least you'd hope not. I hope the city, when there's a snowstorm in January, isn't sending a street cleaning crew out there to go clean up the streets around Target Field or the sidewalks around Target Field because there's really not anyone there. You would hope so, that they could probably take care of that in-house. There's huge plazas over by the Vikings. Who's clearing that? Is that the city? And if the city is so eager to spend the money to go clear the sidewalk for the $1 billion plus stadium that the Vikings have, but all of a sudden when you say, hey, why don't you send that down a residential street where there's 4 people that are handicapped that need to have clear sidewalks so they can get at least to the street corner, heaven forbid you do that. I think it's time. I really do. I think it's time because we're not a tiny little city anymore. We're not a plucky little upstart. We're a major metro area. And instead of maybe us paying out massive fines to families who have been wronged by Minneapolis police and for sports stadiums, maybe, just maybe, we just take a pittance of all that money, $20 million, and spend it on the city. Make yourself look pretty. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. Let's take a break. Come on back. Wrap up the show when we do return. It's the Matt McNeil Show on AM 950.
This is Ross Stadheim, partner at MJSB Employment Justice. When you've been wronged at work or something just doesn't feel right, it's hard to know what to do next. Our firm can help. We pride ourselves on communication and listening to our brave clients to obtain their own brand of justice. When you hire MJSB Employment Justice, you're not just a number. You're a valued client who will be represented by one of our experienced and accomplished partners every step of the way. That's our promise.
Be heard. You deserve better. Contact us today at mjsbjustice.com.
There really is no place like home. Hi, I'm Mary T. of Mary T. Home Health. When you're faced with an illness or an injury, being able to stay at home and receive care is important. Our home health offers a wide range of services, including skilled nursing, physical, occupational, and speech therapies, aides, homemakers, in-home respite care, and 24/7 live-in care. We'll work closely with your primary care provider to come up with an individualized plan for you. Learn more today at marytinc.com.
Eat Local Minnesota is a great way to find locally owned Minnesota restaurants and food purveyors. You'll find high-quality food and unique eating experiences with dishes from around the world. Just visit eatlocalminnesota.com for your next meal. Crooner Supper Club invites you to Maggie's Lounge, an exciting new bar lounge. It's open Wednesdays through Sundays beginning at 4:30 for cocktails and light fare. And you don't need a ticket to enjoy the great atmosphere of Maggie's. So stop by Crooner Supper Club off Moore Lake and Highway 65 for dinner, drinks, and live music from both big-name local and national artists. Cafe Latte combines a cafe dining experience with gourmet quality food. Plus, you can still do online ordering and takeout along with gift cards. Just go to cafelatte.com and choose from their ever-changing selection of award-winning salads, sandwiches, and soups. Cafe Latte is located off Victoria and Grand and online at cafelatte.com.
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. It is the Matt McNeil Show right here on AM 950. A Twin Cities man described by prosecutors as an anti-government militia sympathizer with a desire to kill black activists and liberals sounds like a delight. And ladies, he's single. He's admitted to possessing a machine gun, a grenade launcher, and illicit drugs in his home. Wow, that doesn't sound terrifying at all, does it? A grenade launcher and drugs. Great. Darian Nyan, 50 of Anoka, pled guilty Monday, U.S. District Court in Minneapolis, to possession with intent to distribute meth. Oh, meth, because nothing screams responsible gun ownership than meth use, doesn't it? Oh, an illegal possession of a machine gun. Dear Lord. Hey, welcome to America. He remains held in federal custody without bail in the Sherburne County Jail and now faces at least 5 years in prison and possibly up to 11.25 years, according to the plea agreement. Sentencing has yet to be scheduled. The plea deal signed by him includes him admitting that he discussed an interest in revolution or coup d'etat. Prosecutors said in their criminal complaint that the paid confidant source described him as harboring anti-government 3%er ideology and desiring to be part of that militia group. The source added that he had a 3%ers flag in his garage, discussed his desire to kill liberals by blowing them up or doing the same to members of the Black Lives Matter movement. By the way, the 3%ers took form in 2008, according to the Southern Poverty Law Center. They argue that the U.S. government is actively working to infringe on America's constitutional rights and liberties. 3%ers engage in paramilitary training and organizing outward toward overthrowing the government. The Law Center's description noted. Several 3%er people have been charged in their roles on January 6th at the U.S. Capitol. In April 2022, when the source told the FBI that Nyan had kept rifles, shotguns, and handguns, a grenade launcher, and pipe bombs in his home. Wow. He said the source had a cache of last stand bullets should he need them if cornered by law enforcement. He said the bullets had hollow points containing mercury, which would release infectious gas when shot. During the text message exchange in August after the FBI searched former Trump's residence in Mar-a-Lago, he sent the source a Facebook link for an anti-FBI video of the conspiracy theorist and prominent Trump supporter not named in the complaint. His text with the video included, "It's time for the hour has come. It's time. The hour has come." The source met with him 2 weeks later and asked what he meant by that. He said, "We put on a revolution." The affidavit further alleged that he was manufacturing and trafficking meth from his home as well. The source brought meth from him for $300. And right now, if that guy gets released, Republicans will fight to the death to make sure he gets his guns back. Because that's who they are. Wow. It should be noted, so far in New York City, the right-leaning media is depressed. They really thought when Trump said, they're going to charge me with a crime on Tuesday, that they thought, I guess, that there was going to be some sort of May Day parade a la Russia down the street of militia guys with guns, all these super buff, ready to go 3%ers and all these things to basically take control of the situation, make sure the president doesn't get arrested. Instead, it's a bunch of freaking loon balls that have shown up who are far outnumbered by the anti-Trump protesters, who are, they're pretty, merciless in their ridiculing. I mean, it's depressing. I mean, it's not depressing. I think it's hilarious. The Republican media, though, is acting like, oh, well, there's just not that many people here. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to find like a liberal protester, an anti-Trump protester by themselves. Is like, why aren't you with anybody else? You're all by yourself. Oh, look over there. That's all the other. Yeah, there's tons there. So once again, it's failed. I got to make sure we understand this whole thing with Trump. It's a minority viewpoint. He is a fringe character. His appeal is only these people that really do love him. And he's trying now. I don't know if you've seen this. He's trying to turn Waco into his rallying cry. He's having his rally is in Waco. And the feeling is he's going to point towards what happened with David Koresh, that psychopath who raped children and killed his own followers as opposed to being, taken into custody. That basically that he's going to try to use them as David Koresh was wrong, and I am just as much your savior. Oh my God. Thank God that we don't have too many of those people running. Oh my God. 6 o'clock hour, Native Root Radio. That is coming your way. Have a good one. We are back on a Wednesday with Jeff Stein. Until then, see ya.
Hey, John, I heard you're turning 65 this year. Time to start